I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and in this episode, I want to teach you how to never fail in your endeavors. That's right, to never fail in them, which might sound like an impossible task, but it's not. Because I know from firsthand experience for me, I have yet to fail in the things that I deeply, deeply care about. Whoa, how's that possible? Am I just lucky? No, I'm going to teach you how exactly to do that. But before I fully get into it, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly does mean a lot to me, as I hope it does to you. So, let's get into this, right? Number one, it always starts with confidence and ambition, right? Whenever I enter a project, I aim very, very high, okay? Now, that might seem like it would set me up for failure, or like, how can I know if I can accomplish that? Well, because it's something that I've never done before, you find comparable things in the past that you have done and go from there. So, for example, let's say I'm writing a novel for the first time, right? Well, I've written before, let's say short stories, and those turned out well, so I can write. I have patience, so there's that aspect of it. And I have a good work ethic, and I'm lucky enough and have cultivated good friendships around me that can both inspire as well as help foster this idea to life, right? So all those things combined allow me to go for that ambition because I can look at past examples of success and be able to build on those because it makes it seem less daunting because there is evidence of past stuff. And that's why I never doubt myself. I just look for evidence of myself. You know, I don't need to believe in myself. I need to have evidence of myself, right? That's really all I need. Now, the other thing is, and it's a big one, is sticking with the problem longer. It's an Albert Einstein philosophy. And really that's been the success for me. So, whenever I go out to accomplish something, I have an aim of what I want. But it evolves, it changes, and when I say I've never failed in my projects, it's the end goal. But along the way, there are hundreds upon hundreds of missteps, failures, whatever you want to call them. And because of that, you either fix them, you pivot, you readjust, and all those things, right? And that's a big key component of this. It's not that I never fail, it's that I don't fail in what I'm trying to accomplish. So let's say I'm making a movie, right? You know, we shoot a scene and it's just not working, right? For whatever reason. Well, the option exists to refilm it. Or can you do the movie without it, right? These are all things at your disposal. It's certainly why editing is like the last form of a rewrite in terms of a movie. They say, there's the script you wrote, the film you shot, and the movie that's ultimately edited. And the story changes throughout. And it's because it allows you to adjust in each of those places based on what came before it. The writer has one intention, and then based on the acting, that can shift it and elevate it. And then you see certain things within the editing and you elevate those even further. So you sculpt it and mold it, right? And each one of those is an opportunity to make that adjustment. And this exists in all forms out there, right? Artistically, whether entrepreneurially, and so forth. Winston Churchill, if I don't get the quote exactly, please forgive me, but he says that success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And that is another key component, right? That, along with sticking with the problem longer, allows you to break through any obstacles that arise throughout a project and get to the other side of the finish line. You know, and it's also embracing what might be perceived as mistakes as assets, right? How many times has there been art and, you know, those happy accidents? They primarily, I know examples in film, but for example, in On the Waterfront, there's a scene where Brando is walking with the love interest, Edie is her character name, and it's a tender moment, and she drops a glove. Brando picks it up and then kind of like strokes it. And it just puts him in such a different, warm light. Because in the movie, you know, there's mobsters and so forth, and that's kind of who he's been raised by. His brother is part of it. You know, he's a leader within the mob. And so he's supposed to be this macho sort of guy. But with her, he allows that facade to drop. And certainly just by the sheer nature of how he handles that situation, just even the way he picks up that glove, tells us so much about his character and what he's going through without having to say anything. And that's a happy accident, right? And so what you have to do is, as I said, look for the primary goal, right? So, you know, Brando knew that character so well that he wasn't even thinking. He just did it, and it's so his character. And so, even though it's a misstep, it's an opportunity, right? So these are all things within your toolbox. You can fix it, you can embrace it, you can get rid of it, right? These exist for you. But as long as you know what the aim is, then that's great. Or you can pivot. You know, here's an example of pivoting. I wrote a script called In Search of Sunrise. And it's a script that I love. It's a very thought-provoking script. But it's not one that at the moment, financially, I could make myself. And sure, I could shop it around and so forth. But you know what? Given the nature of it, it's like half of it is very visually arresting. The other half is very heady and internal, meaning it hinges a lot on like the main character's thoughts and what they're going through. And so half of it works amazing as a film, half of it works amazing as a book. Well, I just decided to, you know what, let me embrace that because it's a story that I want to tell. I don't want to wait around and shop for it and so forth. Let me go write this as my second novel. That would be fun for me. And so one might say, well, I failed at making the movie. And not necessarily, I just haven't made it yet. You know, I could very well write the book and then eventually down the line, make the movie. Happens all the time. You just got to have patience with that, right? For me, I always look at things long term as much as possible. But really, my goal was to tell this story, right? And express it in the best possible way. And currently, the best possible way for me was through a novel. So I pivoted into that. And that's what I'm working on in terms of my next novel. So all of these are a mindset, but they're also skills you can develop, right? Because whatever project you're going to be working on, as I said, there's going to be obstacles, limitations, and just things in general that work against you. One of the big ideas in creativity and just life in general, the closer you get to the finish line, the harder it becomes, right? Certainly that works in running, right? Excuse me. And so, it's especially in those moments where if you want to persevere, you just have to keep pushing and know these various things. That yes, you might misstep, you might fail along the way, but you don't have to fail at the goal, right? So know your goal and keep working towards it. And you might fail to meet a deadline, but that doesn't make it a failure, right? How many stories are out there of artists that took 5-10 years to create something? Okay, sure. We both might, my first novel took, 13, 14 years maybe, all in terms of from conception to completion. Even someone like Christopher Nolan, he talks about having written something 10, 15 years ago and then, revising it and finally being in a place to make it. So part of that is the patience and knowing you can always return to it. So it's never a failure if you don't allow it. That's the beautiful thing. So I hope this helps compartmentalize whatever hurdles come along the way, and for you to realize that just because it seems dire and nearly impossible, it's not. Maybe at this moment it might be, but you can keep going, right? It's all solvable. So, and as creatives, I would urge you, go from the unimaginable to the imaginable. Meaning, how can you imagine overcoming those things? We're creatives, right? Whatever problems arise, get creative and come up with solutions. When you do that, you can never fail. So, that's the advice I have for you. I hope you take it to heart, and from now on, succeed at everything that you put forth into the world. Thank you as always. If you have any thoughts, questions of your own, as I'm sure you do, comment down below or hit me up on social media at Svitek. Would love to hear from you on this topic or any other topic you want to talk about, It's all good. Likewise, if you appreciate what I do and think you would benefit from coaching, and that is available to you, that is in the description box. If that is too steep of a price at the moment, well, there is, of course, my Patreon page, patreon.com/Svitek. There's various tiers of support. And, as rewards for that support, you get interaction with me. So that is available to you. Likewise, I've mentioned the various creative projects that I've worked on, books, movies, merchandise, and so forth. If you're curious about any of that, go support it. It's linked to below. Supporting that stuff helps this because by supporting that, I get to keep making that stuff, learning from it, and sharing that wisdom right here with you. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.